Okay, good morning. Today we are going to discuss about the continuous process improvement once again. In that, we are discussing about the Six Sigma concept, and till the last class we have discussed about the re-engineering and all those. Now, Six Sigma. So, what is Six Sigma? According to James Harrington, Six Sigma was defined as it was a simply TQM process that uses process capability analysis. That uses the process capability analysis as a way of measuring progress. As a way of measuring progress. So, process capability analysis, which we are going to discuss in the next chapter. So, process it is nothing but it is ability or capability of the process whether it is going to give the good products without defective products. And here Six Sigma, in the sense Sigma is nothing but it is a symbol which is shown here. Sigma is not, the statistical measurement of dispersion. Dispersion is nothing but deviation, which is called as a standard deviation, So sigma is called as standard deviation. Deviation in the sense, what is the actual thing, what is the obtained thing, that difference is called as a deviation. So it is the best measurement of process variability. So this, by using the standard deviation method, this is gives the process variability, because the smaller the deviation value, less in the variability of the process. So because sigma has to be very low, because if the sigma is low, then we can say that the deviation is low. We can say that the deviation is low. When the deviation is low, in the sense the difference between the actual value and the obtained value is the low value, means it is as per the actual value, it is running, the process is running with the actual value. So less in the variability of the process, less in the variability of the process. Next, see here, this is the Six Sigma quality, where we can call, this is called as a bell-shaped curve or normal distribution curve, bell-shaped curve or normal distribution curve, where the center line is called as a mean of the process, and this is denoted by mu. And if you go on the right side and then left side of this mean value, then it is called as a upper specification, and then is called as a lower specification. Lower specification. So this, if it is running between the 3 sigma limits, if the process is running between the 3 sigma limits, then we are going to get 2700 defects per million. So if I change to the Six Sigma limits, so that the process running with the Six Sigma limits, then I can get the 3.4 defects per million. 3.4 defects per million. So this is what Six Sigma says. So this is called the plus Six Sigma, and this is minus Six Sigma. So plus Six Sigma on this right hand side, and then minus Six Sigma on the left hand side. These are called upper limits. These are called, means from the mean, if you go to the right side, that is called as the upper limits, and then from the mean to the if you go to the left side, this is called as a lower limits. So this is about the bell-shaped curve, which is shown the Six Sigma limits, how it can be for a process which you are going to measure. So if it is the process, generally we are to be centered, or it is to be on the mean level, means the process should be always on the mean level. It should not have any deviation. So that if there is any deviation, this is allowable deviation. So it is maximum plus or minus 6 sigma. It should be within a plus or minus 6 sigma. If we allow this plus or minus 3 sigma, see, this is the one, these are the products which you can call as a defective. So this one and this one, area under the normal distribution curve, if we find out, we can find out the number of defects products which are going to be fall in this region. So if you use this 3 sigma, generally there is a 2700 defects will be fall in this region. So if I use the Six Sigma, a very low number of defects will be false in this outer region. That is 3.4 defects in a million. So the Six Sigma expert uses qualitative and quantitative techniques or tools to drive the process improvement. So any Six Sigma expert, they are going to use the qualitative techniques or as well as the quantitative techniques for the process improvement. So what are those tools? So there are statistical process control chart, failure mode and effects analysis, process mapping. So we'll discuss in what you call one by one. So what is a statistical process control? Statistical process control is defined as the use of statistical, so the name says here the statistical, so it uses the statistical techniques to control the process, so statistical process control in the sense which use the statistical techniques to control the process, that is called as a statistical process control. And SPC tools, general SPC tools and procedures can help you monitor the process behavior. So whether it is giving the good products or defective products, so that is to be analyzed by using this SPC tools. It can be analyzed by SPC tools and discovers issues in internal systems and find a solution for the production issues. So it discovers what are the issues in the internal system by using the SPC tools, and also we can find the solutions for the production issues. Next, here the second one, the control chart. Second one which we discussed about this SPC tools, SPC to Six Sigma tools, which is the any expert can use, is control chart, statistical process control, failure mode, and effects analysis, process mapping. So now we'll discuss about the control chart. So control chart is not a it is a chart which is represented in the form of graph, which is represented in the form of graph. It is used to study how a process changes over a time period. So it will be taken as x-axis and y-axis, because the graph in the sense which has the x-axis and as well as y-axis. On the y-axis, with the process characteristic variable will be taken into the y-axis, and on the x-axis we are going to take the time period. Means as the time changes, how the process characteristic is going to be changed. So that is going to be studied by plotting a graph. So data are plotted in time order. A control chart always has a center line. Which is called as a process average. Means any control chart has to represent in the form of x-axis and y-axis, and also one more, a center line which is parallel to the x-axis. A center line which is parallel to the x-axis is drawn. That is called as the average line, and above this average line, one more line is parallel to the x-axis is drawn. That is called as a upper control limit line. Similarly, the center line, below the center line, if you draw one more line parallel to the x-axis, that is called lower control limit line. So it means that the process has the average of with the center line, and the process has the upper control and lower control limit, in the sense the process has to run within these limits only. Means the control has made with these two lines. One is upper control limit, the other one is lower control limit. So the process has to, as the time changes, it has to fall within these two lines only. Above these two lines, like above the upper control limit or below the lower control limit, if any point falls, then we can say that the process is not going under control. So it has a deviation. So with that graph, by plotting all the characteristic points on that particular graph, then we can say that the process is whether under control or not. So these lines are determined from the previous data. Means as the process is started, so for the time horizon, if I want to start for the month of April, then I need to take the data of month of March, and then these upper control limit and lower control limit is going to be calculated. So these lines in the sense here, the upper control limit and as well as lower control limit and the central line, all these lines will be determined from the previous data. That is, if you want to establish a control chart for the month of April, then I need to take the data from the month for the month of March. So that is the historical data or previous data, we can call it as. By comparing the current data with these lines, you can draw the conclusion about whether the process variation is consistent, or we can say it is in control. Whether the process is control means it has to be always fall within the two lines. That is what we call upper control limit line as well as lower control limit line. When you say that the process is within these two lines, then we can say that the process is in control. Means the process variation is consistent. Suppose the variation is unpredictable. Suppose the variation is unpredictable, then we can say that the process is not under control, it is out of control. So there is some of it is affecting, the process is affected by some causes of variation. So that is nothing but the out of control, in the sense there are some special causes of variation, special causes of variation. Next, one more topic is failure mode and effects analysis. So as we discussed, there are 4 tools. One is statistical process control, and where we use the statistical techniques to control the process. And we know that control chart is a graph where we are going to draw 3 lines. One is the center line, upper control line, and lower control line parallel to the x-axis. And then we can plot the characteristic, and then we can say the process is under control or not. Okay, and we'll move to the next, failure mode and effects analysis. So failure modes, in the sense, modes of failure, nothing but modes of failures. So means the ways or modes in which something might fail, in which something might fail. So what kind of failures can occur in a particular process or a product? So failures are any errors or defects. Failures are nothing but any errors or defects, especially ones that affect the customer and can be potential or actual. So these errors are nothing but which affects the customer, those are taken as errors or defects. Those are called as failure modes. It's a modes of how the particular product or process is going to be failed. What are the modes, or what are the ways any product or process is going to be failed? Next, effects analysis. So effects analysis refers to the studying the consequences of those failures. So if this failure happens, what are the consequences? What are the consequences? That is nothing but effects analysis. So combiningly, it is called as failures modes and effects analysis. Popularly called as FMEA. Tool, which is used in the case of process control or continuous improvement. Next, last one, which we are discussing about the process mapping. Process mapping is an organized way to record all the activities performed by a person or a machine. So it is nothing but it is recording of all the activities performed by a particular person and a particular machine, or activities performed by a machine itself, or with the customer, or on materials, and it can be carried out for manufacturing and non-manufacturing process as well. Means business oriented, or it is a kind of service oriented organizations. For both, it can be that this process mapping tool can be used in the Six Sigma. So the exercise will help to identify the improvement opportunities. Why this process mapping? In the sense, if you are recording all the activities performed by the person, we can know where the improvement opportunity will be there. So, and generally these improvement opportunities will be in qualities, cycle time, capacity and manpower deployment, rework and waste eliminations. So we can find out the improvement opportunities in these clauses, in these categories. Means one is the quality and the other one is the cycle time. Cycle time is nothing but the time from the raw material to the finished product, how much time it is going to be taken, how much time is going to be taken to complete one particular process. So that is called cycle time, capacity, and as well as the manpower deployment and rework and waste elimination. All these categories will help, identify to improve the opportunities in that. And all the activities in any process, can be grouped into 6 categories. So if you take any process, there are six categories will be there. One is first is operation, then transporting, how you are going to transport, and is there any delay in the process, or inspection, means inspection related to quality, and storage. So once the products are finished, that has to be stored. We can call it as inventory. And rework, suppose if there is any the products are rejected in a quality inspection during the inspection time, whether the product will undergo the rework or not. So these activities in any process, if you take, these are the activities will be noted down. So these activities, operational activities, transportational activities, delay activities, and inspection activities, storage and rework, we record all these activities, then we can easily identify that the improvement opportunities. This is what you can call as process mapping. And we discuss about how the Six Sigma methodology can be taken place. The methodology of implementing Six Sigma, Generally, this view of Six Sigma recognize the underlying and rigorous DMAIC approach. So DMAIC approach. What DMAIC? DMAIC defines that the steps a Six Sigma practitioner is expected to follow. Starting with identifying the problem and ending with the implementation of long-lasting solutions. So this Six Sigma practitioner, any Six Sigma practitioner, he is implement this Six Sigma method by using the DMAIC approach, for problem solving. So what the DMAIC approach starts from the identifying the problem and it ends with the solution, which is solution that to be long lasting solution. It should be long lasting solution. So this DMAIC is not only the Six Sigma methodology in use, it is certainly the most widely adopted and recognized method for the problem solving. So what DMAIC stands for? So D stands for define, measure, analyze, inspection, then control. So improve and then control. So then we'll discuss what DMAIC approach. Say define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So these are the five in Six Sigma. In the Six Sigma, five important steps will be implemented. This is the method which you adopt for problem solving in the Six Sigma. So DMAIC is the one method which is used. So first one is define. What you are going to define in this phase? So define the process and the problem. So first define the process and what problem that process has. Next, second one, the measure the current performance, what actually it is giving the result. So measuring in the sense which you need to know what kind of performance it is giving. So what is the actual performance? That is analyze the process for issues and root causes. Here, because if there is any deviation in the current performance with the standard, with the established standard, then there is a deviation. If there is any deviation, what are the issues? What are the causes for that particular deviation? That has to be done in the analyze phase. So analyze the process for issues and the root causes which makes the deviation. So deviation is obtained from the measure phase. So measure the current performance, then analyze the process for issues and root causes. Next, improve, determine and implement the improvement actions. See here you have found out in the analyze step, you have found out the root causes and you have found out the issues. Once you find out the root causes, you have developed the solutions and determine and implement the improvement actions. So you need to determine the solution for improving the process. What are the improvement actions you are going to take? That has to be implemented in the fourth phase. That is determine and implement improvement actions. And fifth one, control. Then maintain the improved process. Means you need to be maintained. As you have implemented this, the current performance which you have measured in the second phase, the deviation has to be minimized and then it has to be under the control. So that means the deviation which you have minimized through determining solution or improvement actions, that has to be maintained or it has to be controlled. So that it will not increase the variation. So likewise, these are the five steps are going to be used in the Six Sigma approach. That is DMAIC method for problem solving. Next, we'll move on to the next topic. As I told you that the continuous improvement with the statistical process control. So what are the statistical process control and what are the 7 quality control tools which you use? SPC tools generally, which you are going to use. As we discussed till now root cause, how they are going to identify the root cause, how they are going to measure the performance, and what are the charts which you have for measuring the performance, and how to analyze the process by using the root cause analysis. That is, as we discussed, the cause and effect diagram, which will help you for identifying the root causes. So those are all called as SPC tools. So with that, we are moving to the next topic called as statistical process control. So if a product is to meet or exceed the customer expectations, generally it should be produced by a process that is stable or repeatable. Stable, the word says, in the sense without any disturbance, the process has to keep going. The process has to be keep going means the stability of the process. The stability of the process means if there is any disturbance or if there is any deviation in the process, then the process will not be stable. So if a product to meet or exceed customers expectations, we need to run the the generally it should be produced by a process which is under stable condition, So if the process is under stable condition, then the product will meet the customer expectation or it may exceed the customer's expectation. If the process is not under stable condition, then the product never meets the customer expectations, if the process is unstable. So you need to maintain the stable process. More precisely, the process must be capable of operating with little variation around the target. See here, as I told you in the control chart, the target is nothing but the center line, which is called as a process mean or process average, and there is a little variation about this particular process mean or variation is allowable, and that should be operate within that limits only. So the process must be capable of operating with little variability around the target or nominal dimensions of the product's quality characteristics. Statistical process control is a powerful collection of problem-solving tools. Statistical process control is a powerful collection of problem-solving tools useful in achieving process stability. So process stability, as we discussed, the process has to be maintained in the stable nature. So in order to achieve the process stability, we use the SPC. We use the statistical process control, or we can call it as SPC tools, which is used to achieve the process stability and improving the capability by reducing the variation. By reducing the variation, we can improve the ability of the process or process stability. So how to reduce this variation? By using the SPC tools. So SPC is statistical process control is one of the greatest technological developments of the 20th century because it is based on sound underlying principles. It is easy to use. As we told that all the SPC tools are very easy to use and it has a significant impact and it can be applied to any of the process. It may be a business process or non-manufacturing process or manufacturing process. It can be applied for manufacturing as well as non-manufacturing process as well. So, and it has 7 major tools. It has 7 major tools in the statistical process control. As we told that this SPC tool used to maintain the process stability and by reducing the variation. So what and all used to find out what is the variation in the process. So these are the 7 tools. These are the 7 tools which are going to use in the SPC. 7 quality control tools we can call it as 7 QC tools. Okay, magnificent 7 also they can call as. So these are all histogram and check sheet, Pareto chart, cause and effect diagram, defect concentration diagram, scatter diagram, control chart. So these are all 7 quality control tools which you can use for process stability, for maintaining the process stability. So first we will discuss one by one. So what is histogram? So the proper deployment of SPC helps create an environment in which all individuals in an organization seek continuous improvement in quality and productivity. So this implementation of SPC, statistical process control, will help in creating the environment where the people in the organization are seeking continuous improvement in the quality and as well as productivity. The environment is best developed when the management becomes involved in the process. So management commitment or management involvement is very much essential in developing this kind of SPC environment. That is where we are going to improve the quality and productivity. Once this environment is established, routine application of the magnificent seven, that is the seven quality control tools, which is called as, once this environment is established, routine application of these quality control tools becomes part of the usual manner of doing business. Means it will be, once you have established, it will be go in a daily how you do the daily work in the similar fashion. It will be a usual manner of doing the things which will be taken place in the organization, and the organization is well on its way to achieve its quality improvement objectives. So once you establish this SPC tools in a particular organization, it is quite easy to achieve the quality improvement objectives. Yeah. So we'll go with first histogram. What is a histogram? So a histogram is nothing but it is a more compact summary of data. A histogram is a more compact summary of data. Means we have a summary of the data. A data if you have, then how to construct a histogram? So to construct a histogram for continuous data, we must divide the range of the data into intervals, which are usually called class intervals, cells, or bins. Generally, the data which has to be classified, I mean divided into a range, like into the intervals, kind of intervals, that is classes, we can call it as class intervals or cells or bins. If possible, the bin should be of equal width. It should be equal, means 10 to, say for example, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, like that. So equal width of that class interval is 10. Width of that class interval is 10. So 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, likewise. So if possible, the bin should be of equal width to enhance the visual information in the histogram. Next, some judgment must be used in selecting the number of bins so that a reasonable display can be developed. So once you have all this number of bins, say for example, the data is consist of around minimum value is, say for example, 5, and the maximum value if you have the data is 100. So you need to maintain the intervals, divide the intervals so that it will fall within 5 to 100. So like 5 to 20, 20 to 35. So likewise in steps of 15 or steps of 20, 5 to 25, 25 to 50, then 50 to 75, 75 to 100. Then we have a number of bins that are reasonable display can be happen in the histogram. So number of bins will become 4 in this case. So the number of bins depends on the number of observations and the amount of scatter or dispersion in the data. So scatter or dispersion in the sense that the smallest value and the maximum value. The difference between the smallest value and the maximum value is called as the dispersion or range of the data. So that based on that, as I told you, 5 and 100, there is a dispersion of around 95. That is maximum minus minimum 5. So based on that, the number of bins you are going to divide it. Then, so a histogram that uses either too few or too many bins will not be informative. So it should not be as small as possible, or it should not be as many as possible. So it should be a some particular minimum for satisfactory construction. So we usually find that there is only between 5 to 20 bins. Means minimum 5 we have to have, means 5 construction bins, and as well as 20, maximum is 20. So within this it is satisfactory in the most cases. So the number of bins should increase with the number of observations. Choosing the number of bins approximately equal to the square root of the number of observation often works well in practice. Sometimes the number of bins can be calculated by using the square of number of observations, square root of number of observation. Then to construct the histogram, use the horizontal axis to represent the measurement scale for the data, and the vertical scale to represent the counts or frequency. Means frequency is the number of times it is occurring. So here, sometimes the frequencies in each bin are divided by the total number of observations, and then the vertical scale of the histogram represents the relative frequencies. So relative frequencies also sometimes can be plotted, and the rectangles are drawn, kind of bar, we can call it as bar, rectangle shape drawn over each bin, and the height of each rectangle is proportional to the occurrence of that particular value or frequency of that particular value. So most statistics packages construct histograms. Means whenever you use the statistical data, maximum statistical data is represented with the histograms, is represented with the histograms. Why? As I told you, the statistical process control, we use the statistical techniques to control the process. So statistical techniques in the sense which you use the statistics here, when you are using the statistics here to find out the frequency day of the data, that is represented in the form of histogram, represented in the form of histograms. So here he has taken one example where the layer thickness of the semiconductor wafers, which is taken as, this is the in angstrom. Thickness is in the form of angstrom. It is mentioned. So 1 angstrom is equal to 10 to the power of -8 meters. This is very smallest value. That's why is mentioned in the angstrom. So 438. He has taken the data. He has taken the data around 10 in a row, and almost it is around 100 observations he has taken. 100 observations he has taken. So in that, this is called as a bench, and this is called as a bench. 405, 415. In terms of 10, he has taken the interval, that is 405 to 415, 415 to 425, then 425 to 435. Likewise, he has taken the steps of 10. That is the width of the particular class interval, width of the class interval. And the occurrence he has taken 405 to this one. So here he has at the range of 405 to 415 will be having the values of around 1 or 2, and then 415 to 425 we have this much value, and then as it is plotted the number of observation, means the number of frequency within that range, we have plotted around 455. The thicknesses of 455 is happening around above 30 times, So this representation, this is the characteristics, means the thickness, the layer thickness of all the 100 semiconductor wafers, which I measured and plotted in the particular graph, which shows that the 455 angstroms, the thickness of 455 angstroms, there are 35 items are there. 35 items are there. Means you can show that the variation in the thickness, layer thickness. So the variation in the thickness, we can see that there is a from smallest to 415 to 485. So this is what a representation of histogram. This is what we can call as representation of histogram. Now we'll move to the check sheet. Check sheet. The name itself says checking. Checking the by taking the factors into consideration in a particular sheet. So in the early stages of process improvement, and it will be often become necessary to collect either historical or current operating data. So you can collect the previous data, as well as you can collect the current ongoing data or operating data about the process under investigation. About the process under investigation, in the process which is not stable, that will be taken for investigation. Why it is not stable, and why it is giving the deviation. So that process, when you are going to study or investigate, and you need to collect the either previous data, or you can collect the current operating data to study that, to analyze that. So this is a common activity in the measure step of DMAC. So in the measure, what is the measure step says in the DMAC approach? So measure the current performance. Measure the current performance means current. That's what he has mentioned. The current operating data you can take, or historical data can be taken for investigation. So these check sheet will be helpful in the DMAC method of Six Sigma implementation in the measure step. So a check sheet can be very useful in this data collection. In this data collection activity, the check sheet shown in figure was developed by an aerospace film engineer who was investigating defects that occurred on one of the firm's tanks. So they have taken aerospace industry where the tanks are produced. The tanks which are plotted here, the graph which is have taken in this figure, is a check sheet of defect data. Means I need to find out what is the defect data for 2000 to 2003. He has taken the year. The part number is TA tank X41. TA tanks X41 is taken. And here, if you look at that, these are the different various defects can be observed in the tanks. So parts damaged, machining problems, supplied parts, Okay, masking insufficient, misaligned welding, process out of order, wrong part issued, unfinished fairing, adhesive failure, powdery aladine, and paint out limits. All these are called as a defects in a particular tank. So that has to be identified in this particular 2002 how much is happened, on 2003 how much is happened, that has to be measured and then put a total so that we can find out where the which problem is occurring more, which problem is occurring more, number of frequency is high, which problem is occurring, the frequency of high is here. If you look at 36 means incorrect dimensions in measuring, and 34 parts damaged parts also. These are all we can find out from using the check sheet. So the things which will be discussed in the next class, I will stop